Welcome to another edition of WCW of Let's Play WCW 1998. This is another edition of Monday Nitro, and it is the second week of May as we continue on our road towards the next pay-per-view coming up, and that is Slamboree at the end of May. But the question still remains, who will be challenging Randy Savage for the world title in May at Slamboree? Maybe, just maybe, tonight we will get the answer. We kick off tonight's show with Randy Savage, a highlight package of last week's Nitro, focusing on the interaction between Randy Savage and Big Sexy Kevin Nash, the two men who ended the show with an encounter of basically Kevin Nash saying that he wants his shot at the WCW World title. Another shot at the WCW World title. And Randy Savage. Now we move to the next segment, which is the Chris Jericho against Stevie Ray. Obviously not as good as I thought it would be, but when you put Stevie Ray against Chris Jericho, you can't expect the match to be that good. And Stevie Ray is victorious. Following the match, to follow actually real WCW, Chris Jericho proceeds to throw a temper tantrum in the middle of the ring, much to the surprise of Mike Tenay and Tony Schiavone, who think that Jericho is acting like a crybaby. But Bobby Heenan ignored that little pop-up. Bobby Heenan is applauding him for finally showing, as Bobby Heenan shows, as Bobby Heenan would say, entertaining qualities, I guess you could call it. Now we move to another video package highlighting the history between Bret Hart and Eric Bischoff that has been magnified in the last couple months since Bret Hart walked away from WCW. And following that, we go to back to the broadcast position with Mike Tenay, Bobby Heenan, and Tony Schiavone, where all of them are talking about Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, and the developing feud between Eric Bischoff, Hulk Hogan, and Bret the Hitman Hart. And what comes next? Well, Eric Bischoff calls out this segment is messed up because it says Hogan twice. Hogan does not actually wait, Eric Bischoff is the one who's supposed to. Hulk Hogan calls out Bret Hart, and Bret Hart's music hits, which is weird because Bret Hart doesn't work for the company. But obviously somebody was told to cue up Bret Hart's music, but Bret Hart doesn't come out. Rather, someone who is impersonating Bret Hart comes out, and Hogan and the person impersonating Bret Hart, which, as you can see by the picture, is actually the second person pictured on screen, Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan really make fun of Bret Hart and Bret Hart's achievements, how they mean nothing here, how Bret Hart needs to make a name for himself here, so on and so forth. And how Bret Hart's not missed, how Bret, so on, and they pick on his family, so, they really rip into him. Now we move to the next segment, which is Mike Awesome. By the way, the only reason why I did not mention anything about that segment is because, number one, Hogan and Bischoff, I guarantee that they would be able to do it themselves, unscripted, no say from me. And part two of that was, I really didn't have a joke to go with it, I really have a joke to go with what to say. So, now we move to Mike Awesome's next match, which is Mike Awesome against Glacier, and this is Mike Awesome's first match since losing to the Giant at the pay-per-view. And this is Now here's a short segment from Mike Awesome, where Mike Awesome basically says something like this. I came in here to WCW with the intention of helping family. But when I am thrown down the ladder and treated like a meaningless second-class citizen, and when I'm forgotten about and ignored, then it turns out that I have to make my own way. Because fact, I am the most powerful member of the NWO. I have the most strength. I am the strongest member of that stable, or I was. Because as far as I'm concerned, me getting what happened at the pay-per-view between me and the Giant was not a loss, but a wake-up call. And I cut the dead weight. Now we move to the next segment, which is Kevin Nash and Randy Savage with, once again, our announcers talking about, well, Kevin Nash and Randy Savage and what happened last week. Now Eric Bischoff is in the ring and he calls out Kevin Nash, and he was a little more colorful about calling out Kevin and insults him, you know, saying he's a crybaby, asking where Scott Hall is, you know, really getting under Kevin's skin. So Kevin comes rushing to the ring, walking as fast as Kevin Nash can without, you know, tearing his quad. Sorry, Kevin. And Eric says, Kevin, you lay a hand on me, you'll join your buddy on the unemployment line. I called you out here because you think you run the show. You don't. I do. Kevin, if you think that you're just gonna waltz your way into a match at Slamboree against Randy Savage, you, my friend, have another thing coming. Because you're not. If you want into that match, you have to beat the man you never wanted to face in the first place. You have to beat the Giant tonight, 1-on-1. And if you do that, you're in against Randy at Slamboree. And Kevin accepts the challenge, much to the delight of Eric, which makes people think, you know, Eric's leaving smiling. There's a catch, but Eric left it out. Now we move to the streak match, Goldberg against another member of the flock. This week it's Riggs. Once again, much like last week, Raven, Kidman, Saturn, Hammer, and Lodi are all watching. This lackluster feud continues with Goldberg getting another win, and like I said, Raven and the other flock members sitting and watching. And now we move to the broadcast position where Tony, Mike, and Bobby are talking about our main event tonight, the Giant and Kevin Nash, and they are discussing the history that these two men have with one another and have developed within the last 12 months. But It has never came to a head before. Tonight, and Nitro will be that platform. And now we move to the next segment, which, by the way, was probably, though you might say because of who it is and what he's doing, which, by the way, Luger's in the ring, and he basically issues an open challenge to anyone on the roster to face him one-on-one. You might think that this segment should have gotten better. Me? I'm not surprised this got as bad as it did. But that's just me. He versed Alex Wright in a solid match. Lex Luger's been on the shelf for the last couple of weeks with an injury. He got injured, I want to say the week after he versed Scott Norton. I don't remember what the injury was, but he did get injured, and that's why he disappeared for a couple weeks. And now he's back and ready to take his spot at the top of the card once more. I also just want to mention, as we are halfway through this episode of Nitro, as we move into Raven and Saturn backstage, which I'll get to in a second, but I just want to say that if you are new to the series and you want to watch the previous episodes of the series, or the previous parts, I'm going to start putting in the I'm going to start putting in little annotations that link back to previous parts of the series, so you can watch it. I will mention it again before this episode is over, but now we move to this. Perry Saturn once again is backstage with Raven, or in the crowd. No, let's say backstage. He's backstage with Raven. They're talking about Goldberg, and once again Perry Saturn is telling Raven, "Put me in the ring with Goldberg. Let me get him. Let me beat him. I could beat his ass. I could make his streak end. Let me get him." Raven starts shaking his head, and it seems like he might be willing to give him a chance. Harlem Heat cuts a promo backstage. Is talking somewhere else backstage, much like Perry and Raven were, and Booker and Stevie are talking about how they've beaten every tag team that was put in front of them, and they have no more competition, and are looking now, are thinking about asking the WCW Championship Committee to expand the outlook. By that I mean, instead of being fixated on WCW, why not expand it? Why not bring it out? Why not have it where teams from other parts of the world can challenge Harlem Heat for the WCW Tag Team title, to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that WCW's Tag Team titles are the best Tag Team titles in the world. And now we move, once again, promoting the main event of the evening, Kevin Nash against the Giant. And Kevin Nash against the Giant, this was not pulled out of thin air. This feud has been developing for almost a year now, and finally, no more lawyers, no more secrets, no more ducking each other. The match will happen tonight. Kevin Nash versus the Giant. Winner goes to Slamboree against Randy Savage for the WCW World's Heavyweight Championship. But before that, Diamond Dallas Page once again working instead of working at the opening on the open of the show like he did last week against Chavo Guerrero. He's in the back end of the show against NWO member Kurt Hennig. Diamond Dallas Page wins in what is a lackluster match against Kurt Hennig, but also shows the difference between hyping a match, because they did a lot better at Starrcade, but there was hype behind that match, and no hype, because there was no hype behind this match. Oh, an interesting turn of events. What's going on here? Dallas Page calls out Randy Macho Man Savage, and DDP mentions something like this. Last year was the best year of my career because nobody thought that I would make it to where I made it. When I first started in the wrestling, everybody questioned my mindset, because at first I was a manager, but I knew I wanted to get in the ring. And I knew that I knew that I would, if I worked at it, somebody would notice and I would get my big break. But my big break wasn't coming. So I started questioning my passion for this business and wrestling in general. But then it happened. Last year everything changed when I hit the diamond cutter on Scott Hall right in the middle of this ring. And then my big break happened. Randy Savage was my big break. When I dropped Randy Savage with the diamond cutter, when I made him feel the bang, I knew right then and there that I had made it. And I knew nobody could take it away from me. But then things changed, and my path to the title, my path to that world title got clouded by backing up and defending this company against the NWO. And now, a year later, I am looking at you, Randy. I want your world championship, because I am ready to take my place on top of WCW. You know, Randy Savage is never afraid to answer the call. The one thing I have to say is nothing changes. Randy has not been scripted for this entire year thus far, so nothing will change right now. Randy and Paige, both unscripted, and both get to speak from the heart and say what is truly on their minds right now in the middle of that ring, in front of all the people watching Nitro and all the people in the Carver Hawkeye Arena in Iowa. And the one thing I tell Randy is to walk up to Paige, shake his hand, and say thank you. Because you proved to me that age is just a number. And I credit you with the fact that I hold this right now. So if you want a shot, you name the time and the place and you got it. How about in 2 weeks? Atlanta, Georgia, on Nitro. You got it. And then, from out of nowhere, you think that the show's going off the air. Hulk Hogan's theme song hits. Hulk Hogan comes out and says, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on. Paige, you're not in charge. Randy, you're not in charge. If any of us right out here right now are in charge, it's me. I am the one who's in charge. And you wanna know something? Paige, you don't deserve a shot. I don't care what you did for Randy. You don't deserve a shot. If anyone deserves a shot for doing nothing, it's me. Why does that not make sense? Listen, Dallas. If you and Randy want to have your little teary, thank you, your ass kissing ceremony, do it somewhere else, because Randy is disgracing that title right now, and I came out here to save it, because if anybody's challenging Randy at Slamboree, it ought to be me. And then Sting repels down just as Randy and Paige were going to answer Hulk Hogan. Sting repels down right behind Hogan, so Hogan is caught between Randy Savage and Diamond Dallas Page and Sting, who landed up next to the rampway. And he comes out and he points the bat at Hogan, then he points the bat at Randy, then he points the bat at Page. And remember, the show isn't ending yet. The show isn't over yet. The show isn't even close to being over. We still have the main event. Kevin Nash against the Giant. And that match got a 44. By the way, Scott Hall comes out and distracts Kevin Nash, which allows the Giant to pick up the win. And does that mean the Giant is going into Slamboree to find out who is, it's the challenge for the WCW World Title? Does that mean the Giant's challenging for the World Title? Fact of the matter is, guys, and everybody, that was one of the worst shows I have ever done because of the main event. Because as you saw, the Giant and Kevin Nash just don't click. I don't know why. But that sorely affected the show. And as you can tell, it gave me one of my worst ratings and set us back tremendously, making us lose 11 in popularity. But what I will say, two things before I turn off this, end this video. Number one is Bret Hart will be coming back soon, as will Ric Flair from the injuries he sustained. Bret Hart will be in attendance next week on Nitro. Will he address Eric Bischoff? And next week also we will straighten out what's going on in the world title picture. Who is challenging who? Who is challenging Randy Savage for the world title at Slamboree? And by the way, I do believe that next week, as long as for the next part 20, I will add a face cam for the Let's Plays, just to show you how animated I can get. And don't forget that starting with this part 19, I will start adding cards. If you don't know what that is, you're probably not a content creator, but if you know what it is, great. you will start seeing links at the top right, in the top right corner of the video, of these videos, linking back to previous editions of previous parts of this series to let you catch up to the previous parts. However, this will not link all the way back from 19 to 1. This will link back 19 to 18 and then 20 to 19. I am not doing it all the way back because we're 20 parts in, things are going to start changing. And I'm going to start adding new things like a face cam, like this, like that, because 20 parts is a lot, and 20 parts is a milestone for us to change. Next time, 20, part 20, for this. How I would book it, WCW 1998. Obviously, the game didn't like the show, but if you did, put a comment down in the comment section below telling me what you liked the most about tonight's show. And don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff for more unique content just like this that you can only find right here on Wrestling Express. Till next time. Peace.